But yeah, so we'll get started. First thing I want to tell you guys is I learned something on my birthday yesterday. And that is for all of us, our communication, if we're not in relationship with somebody, it's marketing. No matter how we look at it, it's marketing. So I say that because, I got my fair share of birthday wishes from, all the do-gooders of Facebook. But there were some people who took it like up a notch. Some people left an audio. Um, some people made a video. And some people sent a really long message. So there's some that stick out. I got a video from a guy who, oh, here's Mark. Okay. And I know him. He's in the generosity generation. I've never met him in person, but like if somebody said his name to me prior to yesterday, I wouldn't be like, oh, I know him, but he sent me a video. And I was like, oh, this must just be part of his like Facebook marketing where he goes just to get his face in front of everybody. So he sends them a happy birthday video, right? But it's different. Toral Chopra White, who's also in there, who I don't have a relationship with. I have been on the same like platform with her in Facebook or Zoom. But if I saw her on the street, I probably wouldn't even recognize her and vice versa. Her and her husband left a message that was just like, happy birthday, blah, 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 Monique, whatever. It was very different because we had seen each other, like we had been in the same space and interacted before. You see what I'm saying? So just because our intentions are good, and it doesn't necessarily mean we're in relationship. And it can be felt on the other side. Because when I saw the video, before I even watched it, I was like, why is he sending me a video? But it became clear that it was just part of his mechanics of his business and his day. So just because you're Facebook friends does not mean that you're in relationship is my point on that one. And I guess I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be mindful of and truthful with ourselves, like who we're in relationship with. And know that some of our stuff is marketing, even though it wasn't intended that way. But because of who that person is, that relationship determines if it's marketing or if it's just like true good nature.
So I have people on our who are friends of mine on Facebook, and they're literally like donors to Smile, and my only interactions with them honestly are marketing, because they wouldn't necessarily be a person that I'd go let's go get a beer with, but I know that they're donors, and so all of our interactions are very businessy. So it's interesting to hear you say that they even optimized your birthday as a marketing thing.
Yeah. So, but if you guys are actually interacting, and they're responding back to you a couple times through the year. So that guy, I had actually reached out to him because he's in insurance. And I reached out for a one-on-one in early January. He has yet to respond to that, but yet maximized my birthday for his marketing. Right? So just think about it. Like people on the other side, they feel, they see whatever. It's not always just oh, there's just another birthday wish. But yeah, so it'd be different when if you already interact, but it's very businessy, that's one thing. But if you go in there and the last message was you wishing them happy birthday last year, you guys probably aren't in a relationship, or they're not on Facebook anymore. Not actively, So something I learned. Mark sent me what he sends out. Mark, I would say don't include your signature in Facebook message though.
Okay.
But it was some very random fact that I don't remember, but it was very random. And very detailed too. So thank you guys for all the birthday wishes that came on Facebook. So let's get started. Let's start talking chapter 4, time blocking was a big one. What did we learn? from our exercise.
It can be difficult to it can be difficult to effectively time block, because it's very easy, especially in this industry, to feel like you have to be right there right now, right? And when you're trying to be right there right now for everybody, it quickly becomes very overwhelming, and you have to like figure out a way to not accidentally leave people behind. So like I think effective blocks are really, really good. And you can pick it. So like I like to do my follow-up stuff earlier, because that's really before everybody is getting started. Because once you hit the middle of the day, like I have 3 different training programs happening right now, and I had to just prioritize like which one to go to. So that's the difficulty of blocking it. But I think like with more time and dedication, hopefully it gets a little easier to smooth out.
It's definitely not something that we do overnight, and I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They're like, oh, I'm gonna do this every day, and then the first thing it doesn't work, they're just like, I'm done. They don't tweak it, they're just like, I'm done. So yeah, I like what you said about the prioritizing, because that's what it's about, right? Warren Buffett says a lot of successful people say no to almost everything. So by being on this call, you're saying no to not one, but multiple things. You know, by being in a one-on-one, not one, but multiple things. Being with a client or a donor, you're saying no to a lot of other things in that same time frame. Whether or not it was a difficult decision, you still say no. What did you say? And then you said something about like, because of the type of the business, right? In which when everything is important, nothing's important. I mean, it just happens that way, you know? And so to your point about your morning time, you're spot on, right? You just get started before the world starts turning, so that when the world starts turning, you can be there for people who are like, oh, okay, you know, I need now. And sometimes people can wait. You know, my favorite is like, oh my God, there's a fire with the closing and it's 4:55 on a Friday. You're not closing in 5 minutes. Like, so you don't have to completely disregard the person who is in front of you in that moment, because that fire is going to be there in 6 minutes. So 1 minute after whatever you're doing is over, because you can't close. You're not gonna fix it at that point to close in time, to like for whatever, right? And so keeping like that kind of stuff in mind is when something does happen, instead of just reacting, take a moment, a breath, look at it and say, okay, do I need to truly walk away at this minute from what I've already committed to? Or can I put it in another place? And sometimes that's all it takes, right? I'll call you in 10 minutes kind of thing. So, because I've seen my fellow agents, they'll be talking to me and like on the phone, and it's just like, well, I got to go because this. And I'm like, you're going to have that same problem in like an hour, in 2 hours, because you're not even the one who can fix it. It's not even your role to fix it. And so that's something I've had to think about as time blocking has gone on. Anybody else have any insight on our time blocking, on their time blocking?
I know that I'm resistant to change, so I was obviously struggling with this. That's just, I mean, most people are, that's the nature of things. Mm-hmm. But what I had a hard time with for me is, and we've talked about this a little bit, is that as the only employee for the organization and the only person who can like sign off on certain things and components of that nature, it's very difficult for me to like look at the 80% of my time should be spent in these one-on-ones, when I know that like in addition to that, I need to be writing grant documents, or we need to be getting fundraising components completed or things of that nature. So it's very difficult for me to try and figure out how to get those things done and try and have 80% of my week be in a one-on-one capacity.
Your 80% doesn't need to be in a one-on-one capacity.
Oh,
It talks about it being in the influential zone. So you can, but you still have the same problem. It's being at the networking event or the training or the seminar or having something for your people, you know? So, so yeah, so it doesn't have to be one-on-one. And if you're in the influential zone 80% of the time, it's likely that you will be exhausted. So with that said, what I encourage is that you start where you are, right? And so if today you don't have any one-on-ones, maybe you're like, okay, well, I'm going to dedicate 4 hours in a week to the one-on-one part. I know you're in BizConnect, so if you make BizConnect a priority, then okay, fine. So now you have 1 hour at BizConnect and 4 hours with one-on-ones. Then you're, you have those 5 hours a week that you can count on. And then as things pick up, because remember, where you are today is not where you'll be at a year from now or 2 years from now. So the idea, I hope, is for Smile to grow into a place where you're not the only grant writer. If anything, you're not even grant writing anymore because the organization has grown with funding that supports having somebody do it. Right?
very much so. And, we sat in strategic planning, like, I think it was 2 nights ago. And these are the components of where being the only one, people are seeing the stressors on, like, now other people have to start doing the lifting, but it's taken so long of me going, I can't do all of it, that there's like that step up. And so I do look forward to seeing like how putting this in to play like rolls out. And I echo last week's, like, how long did it take in the book as far as all of these components?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And remember, he already was very established in where he was, like as far as the number of people, and it was a working business at some point. He just had to like water the plant to bring it back to life, whereas we're like starting to grow plants here. So give yourself some grace and just be like, okay, this is what I'm committed to now, because I don't do everything in 7L. I've been trying to master time blocking for like 2 years. I'm much better today than I was a year ago. I'm better today than I was 3 months ago. So, and one thing I had to do is I had to, what I was telling you guys about everything's not an emergency, is protecting my time. But there are some people you meet that want to have meetings with you that just aren't good meetings. You're only taking them because you don't want to say no. You're like, oh, well, what if? But really, you don't even want to be in business with him or her. Let another agent do that, be that person's go-to. Let another lender, another charity, because they're not necessarily good for you. We go to a lot of like trainings and seminars and this and that. But at some point, we got to stop going to those and start implementing. And so that's where I am, right? I started just this like past year, like getting rid of the noise. I was like, I've been doing so many seminars and stuff. I should be calling people. I should be executing. I should be figuring out my rituals or figuring out my success stories. Right? So just being mindful and protecting your time, and give yourself permission to change it. You can change it every week. You can be like, I don't feel like doing this, or this isn't bringing me the value that I hoped it would. You can finish it out. You can quit where you are, but it's up to you to decide.
As Michael always says, it's 1 degree, just a 1 degree turn. change every day. Don't try and think you got to change 10 degrees or 20 or 50
Yeah.
degree.
Yep, exactly. So that's pretty much the bulk of chapter 4. There's like network stacking and success stories, but most people, that's where their value is in that. So chapter 5, we start to talk about the disc, which all you guys commented about. And then we'll talk about the F-bomb, which is the follow-up bomb, and Dawn being intimidated by Rick's success, which we won't necessarily see, I think, intimidation as much as we start to see people start to question our tactics, because they're not as sexy as chasing online leads, or so many people I tell, I'm like, I do referral based, and they'll be like, what do you mean? Don't you want the business from online? No, I do, but I don't have the time to chase it. So we will talk about the magic question, DISC, spectrum of solutions, one-on-one meetings, and the F-bomb. So the magic question, how would your best friend or spouse describe you? Straight to the point, social, outgoing, steady, dependable, cautious, and perfectly accurate. Patty, which one are you?
Social.
What about you, Rachel?
So it was interesting because I'm social, but I would say, like, per this chapter, I would consider myself steady and dependable.
Okay. Mark?
I think I've strong, straight to the point, but also social and outgoing.
Okay. And Kristen?
Can I ask you to guess which one you think I am, since you know me?
I would guess either cautiously and perfectly accurate. Yep, that's my guess.
That's me. I prefer to communicate in the social and outgoing sphere, like when talking about how they were leaving voicemails and things of that nature. But I'm 100% cautious and perfectly accurate.
Yeah.
Aren't we all a little bit of everything, but we just have one that we're stronger at?
That we're dominant in.
Yeah.
Or that's like we tend to lean to or whatever. So I included the link in the email to you guys today for the Tony Robbins disc that you can fill out. It's free. And it'll give you a printout. And there's other ones too. They're not all the same, but you should get pretty similar results, but the packaging of the results may be different, giving you different viewpoints on being cautiously and perfectly accurate, So have fun with that. So he says to put this like on everything, and I don't put it on everything, but I do find it interesting when I do use it. And I wish I did. I wish I was a little bit more organized so that I did use it more often when meeting people. Whether it's just using it in a call, it just seems so awkward to ask, be like, oh, can I ask you the magic question? Is this weird? Or, so when I can fit it into something, especially electronic registrations and stuff, I might do it there. So yeah, what do you guys think about the question?
Have you considered putting it in your one-on-one? Like when you register for your one-on-one with you?
I don't. Do I still? I thought I had to put it in there at one point. Maybe I need to go back and check. But yeah, that's where if I don't have it there, I should definitely have it there.
Well, if you have those VIP forms that Michael uses, it's like one of the first questions you ask them.
Yeah, and I've been going through that, and I do ask them, and I usually find people, they're like, oh, well, I've never had anybody ask me that, so it's kind of interesting. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I just I don't use the VIP form yet, because that's one of those things I chose some things to focus on and get good at, and then once that's over, then I'll add things to it. So yeah, but it's a great form. And you can also tweak that form and add things if you want. So he talks about the platinum rule: treat people the way you want to be treated, even if it's not the way you want. I think that is critical. Because how many times has somebody treated you the way they wanted to be treated? And you're just like, why are you talking to me like that? Why would you even give me this gift? Like, I don't even care about your words of affirmation, you know? So if you've read the 5 love languages, you know exactly what I just talked about. You know, I'm like, you know, it's kind of like the mom who comes home and asks their kid to like clean the kitchen, like to do the dishes, sweep and mop the floor. And they come home and they're like, hey, I vacuumed the entire house. And she's like, but the kitchen isn't clean. You know, like I don't care that the entire house is clean or the carpet. I needed the kitchen cleaned for dinner. You know what I'm saying? So they did good, but they missed the mark. And so I think that's kind of how, you know, what this is kind of getting at is like, show up the way they need you to show up, not just the way you want to show up, which can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at this, there's this little poem. I don't know it by heart, but care like everyone's an S, smile like everyone's an I, prepare like everyone's a C, and sell like everyone's a D. And that just is going to take time to understand your personality type, how it interacts with other personality types, how to identify other personality types. Because even with the question, right? People could say that they're one thing and it's probably who they want to be or see themselves as, but not necessarily how they truly interact. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like a lot of people who know me, like from networking, kind of, they might think I'm social and outgoing because I'm very talkative and I will talk to you all day. But if they've ever worked with me, they know I'm a C. They need to send me all the information. And then I will call them back and schedule an appointment when I am ready to talk about it. Like even when I bought my house, I evaluated 240 something houses on paper, on a spreadsheet, had my agent look up like 20. I saw 3 and I bought one of them. Like we didn't need to go see a lot of houses. I just needed all the data and all the information because I knew what I wanted. And so keep that in mind if you get a C as a client. Mark, you look like you got something to say.
Yeah, I guess part of that, and I wish that was in the book and better understanding, because I've gone through another one that's, I'm trying to remember, it uses this colors more so than the.
Is that bank code?
It uses 3 colors more so than 4.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the red, green, and like, yeah. We went to a couples thing through the Navy.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually does it as part of his business, and so my wife and I were friends over there, so we went to it. We helped him at a seminar putting it on and stuff, so just so we could learn about it. And some of the questions, like straight to the point, I mean, as I'm asking people those questions, it's like, okay, I kind of understand they're direct and domineering, but that doesn't necessarily make me think of them as a D, a red, when I'm asking them those questions. So that's where seems to be a little bit of a disconnect.
Well, I guess it just gets into, for us, the whole book leaves a lot to go be figured out.
Yeah.
Right? The whole book. It's a very high level. Like, so when the book came out, there was no generosity generation.
Right.
Right? Somebody called him one day several years and was like, when is the next event? And he's like, what event? And then that went on for like years. And then one day someone called and they're like, he's like, what city do you live in? Like Iowa, or someplace in Iowa. He's like, all right, we're going to be there next month. And that's how they started doing events, like the real life Referco organization. That's how they came into doing events. So you guys, believe it or not, we're in the early stages of their existence. This conference would only have been the one in Arizona last year would have only been the third one. So
Wow.
we're really in their infancy. So the book was written because he wanted to write a book. It wasn't because he was starting this following that he had really thought like, I'm going to write this book and then I'm going to teach all these people how to do it. That was not the intention. So it was just a story to help people. So now it leaves so much for us to figure out. And I'll send a link of books on Amazon that talk about the disc in more detail. And Rachel, I'm trying to find out, there's a woman who does a training on disc that people rave about. And I think she's with Tidewater Mortgage. I'm not 100%, but I'm trying to find out so you can connect with her.
Interesting.
You met-
Yeah, that'd be great.
Have you met Mandy Schnell
Nope.
through BizConnect?
Oh yeah, I know who Mandy is.
She did our disc assessment for our board of directors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know she does it. I know she was into it for forever.
Well, that's something we can explore. I did not know that I knew she did business development, but I didn't know she did that. So on the disc, if it is something that you think is going to be valuable to you in learning more about it, I encourage you to put it on your agenda for the year. So don't go out tomorrow and get 6 books on the topic and be like, I don't have time to do all the things I already scheduled. If you already read books regularly, add it to your reading list.
Right.
Make it the next book if you're that excited. If not, make it 2 or 3 books from now. But don't overwhelm yourself trying to learn it. It's okay if you take the time to learn it over time.
Yeah, I want to understand it, but I don't necessarily want to be able to teach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
7L stuff.
Yeah. So then it'll give you, I'm like, oh, I want to learn more about it. I don't want to teach it at all, but I want to be able to adjust my words, my actions to meet people where they are, or somehow get us to meet halfway.
Right.
So that we can at least walk on the same path. So the spectrum of solutions. Have you guys ever seen one before? Okay. It's kind of like a brochure, right? For lack of better terms, of what you do.
These are the things that Monica was using at the luncheons with Rick, where she, at the end, said, here, this is what I do type thing.
Yeah, basically. And it was like a 1-pager. And so this is one I had put together a long time ago, and I should fix it because I'm not with that brokerage anymore. But it basically is like an introduction of who I am. It says that I had a heart of a teacher to help people through the process. This kind of educates on if you're moving out of the area, I can help you get connected with an agent. I do give back part of my commission to a charity of the client's choice. And then we're always looking to connect with other agents who are looking for a new brokerage home kind of thing, right? So all of that is still relevant, but there's other things that I do, right? So maybe if I was meeting with Rachel, right? I may give her one that now speaks more towards like, oh, I do stuff to help people build by referrals, right? Because I want her to connect me to other people. I don't necessarily need her to send me deals, but if she's connecting me to her people in terms of like, oh, maybe you should go to this book club, Mr. Florist, or Mrs. Baker, go. Like, she'll help you grow your business through referrals, and you don't have to do so much like whatever that annoys you. Or like, I would love to get connected to other agents to see if they would be interested in joining EXP with me. Nonprofits, they're a great connection for me. So I might change it up depending on my audience. But remember, you are meeting with people as potential referral sources, not necessarily clients. Like, yes, you would want them to buy or sell with you, but more importantly, if they, regardless of what they do, if 10 of their friends buy or sell with you, who cares who they buy or sell with?
Right, so they become an ambassador to you, but do you have like 2 or 3 of these, like depending on what your audience is gonna be?
If I had my act together, I would. But when I created this, I was like 1.5 years in the business and I had only done 2 transactions. So I was literally just getting started with 7L. But fast forward, what, 2 years? Yeah, 2 years. I now need to update this for people who like maybe might be more of a connection for who would be my clients. I would have one, and then I'd have one for people who I'd probably be more of a connecting me more to other people,
Right,
other businesses, right? So like Rachel, and I use you as an example because you're in lending, so it's a perfect example. I wouldn't necessarily give her one that says how I help buyers and sellers. Every agent is targeting her for that, right? I would work with her and, maybe let her know what I do for the greater real estate community
mhm,
and how I can help other agents. So then she might be like, come across struggling agents and be like, hey, maybe this referral direction might be a good fit for you. Talk to Monique, or she might come across an organization locally that she's like, oh, maybe you should talk to Monique. Maybe she can help you guys out throughout the year,
sure.
So there's just different, so that's why I would have more than one.
Can you share a copy of that?
I
I know
can't.
it's old, but
Yeah, I can share a copy. Not a problem. So what are some things of value? Let's help Kristen. What are some things of value that like Kristen might put on hers? Because she's a nonprofit, executive director of a nonprofit, right? Which means that she is connected to volunteers, people who contribute financially to her organization, and possibly staff, as well as other nonprofit professionals, right? She probably has a lot more of those than we do in our sphere.
mhm,
So if she's meeting with those people, because all of those people, with the exception of her peers, are in different industries. So what might she be able to share on her spectrum of solutions? How could she help? How could she help a lender? How could she help a real estate agent?
well, I would think most of the people she's getting to be contributors are gonna be probably in the higher income or wealth community.
And why
Because
is that?
because they tend to have more to give. I mean, where people who are struggling are not going to be, they don't have money to give.
Well,
Fun
yeah.
fact, the majority of individuals who give are individuals who are usually like in the lower income brackets than high wealth individuals.
Interesting. Okay.
Facts.
And then, and what is your charity? I guess I don't understand your charity. I mean, I would think that may be true. I used to own an animal hospital, so I would think that of humane societies and things like that. I don't understand what Smile is. When I first saw Smile, I thought you were a dental office.
So SMILE stands for Samantha Makes It a Little
Oh, that's
Easier.
a
Samantha
smile.
was my
Oh.
late sister, but what we do is we provide adaptive equipment. So think prosthetics, hearing aids, hand tricycles, things of that nature that can enhance a child's quality of life, but is usually extremely costly and insurance tends to deny it.
Okay. Okay, so that changes my thought process of what your donors would be.
So,
And our donors are oddly enough anywhere from medical professionals to my since it was founded in memory of my sister, my father's an architect, so we have a huge number of supporters who are PM&E architects, construction workers, things of that nature, professions of that nature, and that's just because of the nature of the history of our organization, not so much them
Sorry,
being
Beth.
connected to the population we serve.
Sure, sure. Well, that makes sense. And understanding what it is that you're supporting, prosthetics, hearing aids, things like that, people who would be utilizing that or have family members, I can see them being donors and things like that. So, yeah.
Rachel has something.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of still trying to like process it and put it together, but I'll just start talking and hopefully it'll get there. I think like a value you could add, kind of like Monique was saying, is you have a lot of different people that you know, right? So depending on who you're trying to connect with, so like say you're trying to connect with me, for example, right? Like you know a lot of different people, so everybody that you meet, if they're looking for a lender, like you have a really wide base that you could connect people with. So like I do a lot of marketing, or I'm starting to do more marketing as I grow. Like maybe you know photographers, or maybe you know people who like to volunteer on beaches, right? And then through that, like you recommend people to me, and then I start thinking more about you as far as like my philanthropic goals. Um, so like I'm thinking of doing something with a photographer, actually a real estate photographer, on Mother's Day, and we want to do it at some outdoor location, and we're going to charge people like $5-10, and then have all those proceeds go to like a charity of our choice or their choice. It hasn't quite been worked out yet, but like in those referrals, like by giving somebody like me referrals, or like connecting me to people, like in the future that brings more opportunities for you. So I don't think you have to say that to them, but it's like the more people you're connecting with people when they do start looking to donate, or when you do ask for something, they'll be more likely to send it your way. So I think your base is like how many people you know and how you can connect people to other people. And I think that's the value you can bring, like just a quick thought of it.
Exactly. And that's a good point. And then within her network, she has people that she can connect. Because I mean, I don't know who your donors are besides myself, but yeah. So you can talk about the organization, what you provide. You guys have the events in the city. You have a strong network of people, like all professions and whatever. And it doesn't have to be like exactly 5 things. You have volunteer opportunities, at your events. You obviously have sponsorship opportunities at your events, and so just having that to share, because this is an assumption that you're meeting charity to business. You're not just meeting with like Joe off the street. But if you think about what kind of value you can bring, those different opportunities, that'll get you there.
So would you all use your SOS as a tool that you use? Say that since you're a realtor and Rachel's in lending, like would you go to her with this like in architecture, I grew up with my dad being an architect, so like I unfortunately know too much about the business, but they have what they call like slicks, and it's like this little piece of information that says like, we're really good at dental hospitals, and it's a whole bunch of examples. So would you go to Rachel and say, hey Rachel, I'm really great with these things and you're a lender? Or like,
No, I'd be like, hey Rachel, we're gonna have this one-on-one and it's gonna be awesome. And at the end of the one-on-one, I would probably just follow up an email with Rachel with a copy of my SOS and be like, hey, just so you know, I've attached this spectrum of solutions, and you can call it anything, right? I just called it spectrum of solutions because I would get stuck on figuring out a name for months. And the book said spectrum of solutions, so that's what I called it. But I'd be like, oh, I attach my spectrum of solutions so you can learn more about what I do and, for my people and the community. And that might be all I say about it, but it's up to her if she wants to read it or not, or if you're actually at the meeting, like if in the book, Michelle basically slid it across the table to Rick and was like, you can read my spectrum of solutions later.
Right. I kind of like that because it gives you a little more time to get into a personal relationship and get to know them. That's what I was trying to understand it. And because that way you don't have to go through your elevator pitch.
Exactly. And that's what you like really think about these people is like, I want to be in relationship with you. I don't know what's going to come of it, but I know something great can come of it if we can be in relationship. And in that relationship, great, could just be the relationship through knowledge and education. And, I had a friend back in 2007. She's my friend now. I barely knew her then. Recommended, she said, Monique, Dave Ramsey says, do not invest in your 401k until you get out of debt. I was like, that's blasphemy. It's lies, 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 right? I just graduated with my MBA like a month prior. We learned none of that. I read that book in 2007, completely altered my financial future. I mean, she's never sent me business, right? But that book brought so much value, So it can be something like that comes from the relationship, or it could potentially be a lot of business.
So she sent you Dave Ramsey's book?
No, she told me about it and told me that I should read it. And I read it that weekend. She planted the seed. But I attribute all of my financial success with the Total Money Makeover to this date to her. Because had she not said those words to me, and she sat in the cubicle next to me. So we talked about it over the next 3 years. Had she not introduced me to that, I would be like so many other Americans, just paying the minimum payment, riding out this debt journey instead of being almost debt free. You know what I'm saying? So we don't know what value those people are going to bring to us. We have no idea. Our job is just to be there, love, appreciation, and generosity. And in return, the business will come. And sometimes from the people that you don't even expect. So like Kristen, to like Mark's point, is like, oh, maybe somebody low income might not, right? Well, we don't know who people know. And I'm gonna use this example. I went to my aunt's house one year for Christmas. She's my rich aunt, I call her. But and that's just because she has a bigger house than the one that the Air Force gave us when I was little, So I'm like, oh, that's my rich aunt. And she's like, oh, we're going to a holiday party. Do you want to go? I'm like, sure. So we go. And you walk into people's houses and they have all their shoes there. Every single pair was a pair of Converse. And I was like, man, they must really like Converse. Turns out he was the president. So you don't know who people can connect you with or will connect you with, And I mean, if you met my brother and my aunt, they are so completely different. You would never assume that he knew her or she knew him. based off of how they live their lives, So don't discredit anybody.
There's a book called The Millionaire Next Door that
Exactly.
is insightful for both nonprofits and other individuals, I think.
That's a
Mhm.
really good book. I mean, there's a lot of good insight in that. Most millionaires are not flamboyant and don't
Mhm.
want it.
They're not Beyonce,
They're
Jay-Z.
driving the pickup. Most of them are driving pickup trucks.
Indeed. Don McNaughton shared a story the other day. He had an event and he had a caterer at the event. And this was like early on in their career. And he said it was just for his like friends and family. And the caterer was like, you got a lot of good people around you and your clients are nice. He's like, I'm trying to sell 14 properties. Can y'all help me? And this is just the caterer. So Kristen, you may not have thought to connect me to a caterer, or Rachel, you might not have thought to connect me to a caterer.
So here's a quick question for you on this, right? Because I was
Mhm.
thinking about this when they were talking about the time stacking of like, which I know that's like not happening tomorrow, like
Yeah.
with COVID and all of those different things, right?
Mhm.
But I was thinking about this and like identifying like your connectors and who you connect them to. Like I could identify individuals within my sphere who would be great connectors. But I also think that those individuals are not people that like I can say that I'm in business with people that I don't really want to be in business with, mainly because they've got these other connections. And so like how do you manage that component? That sounds like
Manage the people you don't want to be in business with.
yeah. So it's like I'm thinking of like one particular instance where, and you said caterer, right? And like we have a caterer, she's really well connected, all of that kind of stuff. But man, she drives me nuts. She's difficult to deal with. Just isn't necessarily an F bomber, all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
right? Doesn't fall through, doesn't do all that kind of stuff. But she sometimes can really connect me really well. And so I'm like, is that the person that you talked about earlier where you have someone similar where you're just like, I kind of keep him at an arm's distance. He keeps coming back and you just deal with it as it happens?
Yeah, so your situation is different because she's one that uses you use her. So if I was in that situation, I would have meetings with myself and Rachel and be like, hey, you know what, when we ask the question like, how can we help you, be like, hey, I'm looking for someone who has a heart of gold that is a caterer and provides a level 10 service, right? That's what I would do. I would go find another caterer that I want to be in business with. And maybe you say it's a caterer that's connected. Or maybe what happens is you just get another caterer that's not as connected, but there's someone else that we bring to your circle that is very well connected. Because the time and energy she's taking up, someone else, you could be meeting for someone else's, while your new caterer is on top of things and they save you time that way. So that's kind of how I would handle that one. Now, if you have somebody you're not soliciting services from them and they're like that, then that's just somebody you leave, like, you might not ever schedule a one-on-one, but you make sure they get the newsletter kind of thing. And so yeah. And he talks a lot about knowing who the connectors are and introducing people. I don't know who is who. I take all the meetings and I figure it out from there. If they say in that meeting that they want to, like, they have a pain point or they want to get connected to X, Y, or Z, I make a note of it and to connect them later. So yeah, so you don't have to know, and you don't have to like introduce them. You don't have to align them like, oh, I'm connecting Kristen and Mark right here so that they can meet each other. Unless they both want to meet each other or one wants to meet the other, don't even bother with it. Like, remove some of the difficulties so that you can execute, because there will be a day when you have two people who you need to connect. and just be prepared to connect them. It can be on a Zoom call. It can be in person one day. It could be at the networking event that all three of you attend. So it could be, different things. And another way to bring value, Kristen, so for example, is that, or even Rachel, right? So I do well, obviously I do the book club, but let's say I was like doing something else. My team leader, every month she brings in like a speaker, and we try to get more people to it, specifically agents. Well, if I share that with Rachel and Rachel shares it with other agents, that's of value. If I share it with you, Kristen, and you share it with agents, that's of value. If you have an event and all of us invite people to your 5K, that's value. So just really thinking about it from like the micro to the macro level, and giving people the opportunity to show up and to give and to spend. Don't be like, oh, like Rachel doesn't look at buyer people and be like, oh, I don't think they're going to be able to qualify. She's like, let me see your documents, and then we'll determine if you can qualify. She doesn't care. He came in looking like hot garbage. It's cool. And so, and same with you, Kristen. Somebody might look like garbage, right? But then they write you a $250,000 check.
True. There are some moments though where in the realm of and the scope of being in a nonprofit is you have to take into consideration who you're getting your check from and whether that individual aligns with your values as a group and an organization.
Well, yeah.
And I say that just because we've recently been people like, oh, this person wants to donate or get involved. I'm like, that person's shady, and like a whole laundry list of other reasons I don't.
You might know things about that person that keeps them out. Yeah. So I was talking about a complete stranger who doesn't like know you, right?
Just rolling up a pair of like sneakers and like cut off jeans. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't look like $1 million. So the one-on-one meeting, Mark alluded to this a second ago, is that the meeting is about them, not us. So we want to learn as much as we can about them, about what they're doing. We want to make them feel good. Ask about their biggest challenge. And a lot of people have trouble answering this question. Not just like my biggest challenge, but how can I help you? Well, right down at the bottom. How can I help you? What can I do for you? They're like, oh, they don't even know. So on that note, I want you guys to know how people can help you and what they can do. So if it is as simple as I'm looking for a caterer with level 10 service who has a heart of gold, then that's what it is. If it's we're looking for volunteers, if it's I'm just looking to connect to more people, who do you know that I should know? Whatever it is, know it, because a lot of people will reciprocate the question. But a lot of people don't know what they want. So you might have to pry a little bit, but then you might have to model the way.
I've had it, because I'm using the VIP questionnaire. So usually my last question is, what's your biggest challenge right now?
Mm-hmm.
Biggest question or response I've been getting is getting through COVID. And what can I do to help them there? I mean, we're all going through that. That is a big challenge.
Well, what's a challenge in COVID that you can help them with? Ours is like, do you know anybody who's looking to sell their house? That's a huge challenge for agents, right?
Right. And I do ask that question. If you were going to sell, or you do,
Mm-hmm.
I asked what is it, the greatest question or whatever, as far as, if you knew, if you're somebody in your family was going to buy or sell, who would you recommend?
Right.
And how can I be that person?
Mm-hmm. But then ask, so I'm an introvert, extrovert, like right on the cusp there. And there was one day I just reached my capacity of being introverted. Right. So I was like, I need something to do. Looking at these walls is not it, So if somebody would have messaged me with like 3 things to do to get out of the COVID blues, or 3 things to do to get out of the house during COVID. That's a way to help them get through COVID. So it's not always business. Go ahead, Kristen.
And I was gonna say, and if you're seeing that like COVID is the thing that's coming up regularly, I mean, this is a technique we use in social work. So you just continue with like your prying questions of like, well, what's got you down about the COVID? Is it, and then somebody's gonna tell you, well, I can't get a night out. I'm trapped in the house with my kids. I need a babysitter. I need, or I haven't left my house in 3 weeks, or I've been eating the same food because that's all that I can get delivered. That gives you an opportunity to find your like referral, like after, not your referral, but your
value.
Yeah, your value afterwards.
And it doesn't mean deliver them a meal, but it means like, hey, well, my sister knows a great babysitter. Or whatever. So that's why we got social workers in our group. So we're going to finish this up next week. Go ahead and read chapter 6. 4, 5, and 6 are kind of like the meatiest, and they kind of blur over, but we'll follow up with the F-bomb next week. We have like 3 more slides, whatever, and go from there. But
yeah, I found it was interesting in the book, the F-bomb's not really covered that well, but I did hear one of the podcasts where he went into great detail on it.
yeah. Do you know which
So-
one that was by any chance?
I did. I wrote it in the book so I could refer to it.
Monique, I gotta go. I got another webinar.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
So it was October 21st, 2020. It was number 148,
Okay.
and it was about 40 minutes into the podcast because it was
Okay.
not the subject.
Okay. And then there's one for the one-on-one meeting, and I'll try to find it. No promises.
Yeah. Has he done anything about how to do the one-on-ones during COVID?
Zoom.
Like that, the actual content.
No, doing them. I gotta be honest with you. I think that if I could be wrong, and I haven't tried it, so I will see if individuals in my network want to set up a one-on-one Zoom. But I already know people are like, well, let's go get coffee, and I'm like,
So this is what I say to that. And if you guys need to go, that's fine. We're just chatting at this point. So people who I ask if they want to do a one-on-one, so I never call them and ask them because I want to send my link because I don't want to get into the scheduling conversation. So I send the link for them to schedule. And if they're like, oh, I prefer to meet face-to-face, I say, I understand. However, we're in a pandemic. Or so I'll be like, oh, I understand. Me too. But during COVID, I'm doing Zoom meetings, but once it's over, we can have follow-up meetings in person once COVID restrictions are lifted. That's what I did. So there's some people who didn't schedule, but that just made available for someone else.
So you
So-
still don't have open restaurants and stuff where you're at?
Yeah, we do. I just don't want to go.
yeah, I serve a population of individuals who are at the highest risk from dying from COVID, and I am no way going to be the person who's like, yeah, I'm gonna go out and just like have
Yeah.
like coffee and everything with everybody, but then tell everyone to stay at home. It would be so bad.
I'm just taking advantage of the fact that I don't have to drive across town because there are COVID restrictions in place. And it's just good social distancing, And so while this is a thing, I'm just I feel it's better to fully adapt than it is to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, because I was looking at going to Panera every other week for my one-on-ones and then do Zoom for those who accommodate those. But I've had no problems with the Zoom. And if they don't book, that's fine. There's more people. I have plenty of stuff to do. Like tomorrow, I don't have any. And so I will make phone calls during that time. It's real easy to fill.
And that's how you're modifying your time blocking then, right? Basically at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And I go in there once, like when the week starts, like sometimes like, oh, I have to do a CE continuing education class. So then I'll be like, oh, well, that's in place when I'm supposed to be doing this, but I prioritize it over. And so I'll just delete it and place it there. But it's forever evolving. But saying no is going to be key, Kristen.
I'm the worst at that.
Get better.
I'm
It's a
working on
key
it.
sentence.
We're giving other options. Like, I don't know, I find most people are very respectful to your needs. Even for me who makes appointments with realtors. So like I'm asking for something from them. If I say I'm really only comfortable with eating outside, they're all fine with that. Or, some are only doing Zoom right now, like
Yeah.
Monique. So it's like everybody's generally, I find, has been really respectful to others' needs as long as you just state them.
Yeah, no, I will go out. Like if somebody like really, really wanted me to go out and they were really, really important, I would go because I'm not scared. Like I go all over for the Air Force. It's just that right now I find that the people who have been most reluctant to do Zoom are the people who are most reluctant to adapt. And so while I would love to accommodate every single person, that's how we end up with so much on our calendars, and we're not being able to do what we need to do. So, but if your schedule allows you to do it and you're open to it, then like, why not?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem going out and meeting with people, but what you're saying makes sense as far as, getting them to fit within your schedule and making it easier on yourself and your own schedule.
Because that's something I was worried about before I started one-on-ones was like, what am I missing out by not accommodating someone else? Like someone reached out to me and was like, Thursdays are bad for me. I'm like, that's cool. Maybe my schedule will change in the spring. Now, if it was Janet Jackson, I would have immediately accommodated.
Well, how do you know it's not? Maybe it's her sister.
No, it's not her sister. I know who her sisters are.
I was gonna say it was probably me. I was like, Monique, Thursdays are rough when you said those things.
No, it was someone I didn't know. It was somebody I didn't know. I'd seen them from a distance, and if I never do business with them, I'm okay. So that sounds harsh, I know, but
I gotta run. Great.
all right. Bye, Mark.
See you next week.
You're welcome, Kristen. See you next
Thank you.
week.
See you next week.
Mhm.
And I'll try and get my homework in sooner.
Awesome.
I'm working on it.
That's cool. Okay, Rachel, do we want to schedule now?
Yes,
Okay.
I am ready.
So I'm bringing up my.
Also, for your homework, you do ask what chapter we're reading
Hold on
now.
a second. Hold on a second.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I was supposed to have a meeting at 2, but she canceled. So you were saying,
That's good.
yeah,
Worked out well in your favor.
yeah. My phone rang twice and I wasn't even thinking.
Oh no.
Okay.
I know, I'm
on
like
the
at
homework.
2. Oh, so you asked usually like what chapter we're reading.
Mhm,
I try to stay current each week
mhm.
because the book is so easy to read. I find myself going through the chapters really quickly,
Yeah,
but that's not. So I try to stay like within the chapter that we're reading on that week, just so I can absorb it and kind of make any notes that I want to, so we're ready for this week. And Is that fine for you? Do you want me to send them to you earlier? I will always just stay on the chapter because I feel like that's how we're.
Yeah, so I just read it so I know kind of an idea of what people are tracking and what they want to, because not
Got it.
everybody reads all the answers all the questions, and not everybody answers them in a way that's beneficial for me to help. And so it's just a point of reference for me on what to like maybe highlight or comment on, or provide additional resources when I send my email out. Like the DISC, everybody talked about like wanting to understand and know more about the DISC. And so I was just like, oh, I never really even thought. So let me give them beyond the link, like other, one single book would go more in depth enough for any one of us.
Yeah. It's always that one in particular is something I struggle because I'm very me like all the time. So it's hard to kind of sometimes pull it back and be like, that's not what this person needs, but still being authentic while talking to them. So that's something I'm growing with, but it's been taking a very long time.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to not be.
It's hard.
So like, so. But then like you just be like,
it's good to learn about those.
You're just like, oh, okay, that's not this kind of party. Okay, here's your paper. Bye.
Bye.
And then they'll be like, oh, I love her. She gets me. She just gives me my stuff and leaves.
Right. I'll like try to pay attention to it. I'm guessing I'll get to the point where you just find people that mesh with you, and you can filter around and stuff like that. Okay. On that note, I'm pulling up my schedule next week. In general, do you like to stick with Thursdays for your meetings?
That is
during
my preference for my one-on-ones. But since we're scheduling something different than the one-on-one, I'm open.
You can do it.
And I prefer the afternoon in that case.
Okay. For me, usually after 2:00, like 2 onward is fine.
Okay. So.
And I don't have any specific meetings in the afternoon right now next week.
So how about 2 on Tuesday?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Are you going to send me a meeting request, or you want me to?
Do you have a Teams? Can I do it? I wonder.
Hold on a second. Hey there.
No problem.
Hold on, my headphones. Hello, ma'am. Can you give me one more second? Okay, hold on. All right. I do not have Teams. I do have Teams, but it's for the military, so I don't have Teams.
Okay, so we can't use that. All right. I can send you something through Zoom.
Okay.
I'll go in and set it up.
All right, then. That sounds good. And then if there's anything you want me to prepare, then let me know, like the things you want me to think about. And I will water those seeds and bring them to the party.
Perfect. All right, so I'll think about it, and then I'll add it like in the Zoom invite that I send. So it'll be today.
All right,
and
sounds
I'll think
good.
a little bit about.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, Miss Brenda.